Hello and welcome back to today's video. In today's video, we are going to understand about how to create an assembly inside NX. Now in the previous video, we have already completed, creating bunch of parts inside NX, right from the base of vise to the block, sliding jaw, fixed jaw, end plate, and other components as well, like screw rod, etc. In this video, we are going to learn how to assemble them together in order to form a complete working assembly. Okay, so to start with, what we are going to do is we are going to click on new, and then we are going to select model over here. Okay, on the top left corner is here also model is something which we need to select. Now in other softwares normally you have to select an assembly, but here in this software we have to select model. Once the model is selected, then we have to define the name of this particular model, and this particular model name will be the assembly of benchwise. So here I am just defining the name assembly of benchwise. So this is what will be the name of this particular model. Now once I define the name, I need to also define the location where exactly it is going to save. Now if you are like me and have by mistakenly clicked OK before defining the location and already started the file, then press Ctrl S, that is save button, or you can also press file save as and save this particular file in the same location where all your components are saved. So in my case, it is in D drive benchwise assembly folder. That is the location where I'm going to save this particular file also, known as assembly of benchwise. Now once the file is saved, we are all ready to go and we are ready to start with the assembly process. Now to start with the assembly process, first we need to click on this file button over here, and here on the right side we should make sure assemblies is checked, or else you have one more location. You can go to application, you can click on more, or you can click on the toolbox. Okay, and here you might find somewhere toolbox over here, and you might find assemblies over here. So make sure assemblies is checked. Now if the assembly option is checked, you will get an assembly tab here. Okay, if you're not getting the assembly tab here, that means the assemblies option is not checked. So once assembly option is checked and you get the assembly tag over here or assembly tab over here, then you are all good to go to start with the new assembly. Now to create a new assembly, there are two things we need to do. We need to add and locate. So that is how we are going to work around the assembly. Now whenever we are working on an assembly, we are going to switch to this navigator called as assembly navigator, so that we can get a clear idea about how our components and what type of components we are entering into an assembly. Now to add the first component, and technically adding the first component is the easiest part of creating an assembly. Now to add any component into the assembly, now what are components? The components are basically part files or assembly files which are already created either using NX. So here we are going to click on add component over here. Now this particular command will give me an access to browse for a part. I'm just resetting the command so that everything goes back to normal. So here I'm just browsing for the part. So for example, here I'm to browse for base because that is the base component on which we are going to browse other components, and generally it is like the first component is a fixed component. So here I'm browsing this part. Okay, now I'm not getting any graphical preview. So to have a graphical preview, you have certain options over here, but I'm not generally into graphical preview as of now. Now what I need to do is I need to select the part over here which is already selected. Now here in component anchor it should be absolute. In assembly location you can say WCS. So that part will automatically come at the work coordinate system or the main coordinate system. So this is generally recommended for the first part, because in that case the top, front, right view of the parts will match with the assembly, so that your assembly is oriented correctly. Or otherwise if your assembly is by mistakenly oriented like this will not look great. Okay, so I'll just reset the orientation for now. Here we have selected absolute WCS and I'm going to click OK. Once I click OK, it will give me a prompt. You just added the first component of the assembly. Do you want to create a fixed constraint? I'll say yes, I do want to create a fixed constraint, and now first component to the assembly is added and also fixed in place. Okay, so we are all good to go. Now there are multiple ways of creating and adding components to an assembly. We will see different ways for different components. Now again I'm going to click on add component. This time I'm going to browse for, let's say, the component name block. Now here if I click OK, this particular component is coming somewhere over here in the graphics area. I cannot simply try, I'm trying to drag it, but I cannot do that. Okay, why? Because here if in order to drag that component around, you have to click on the placement move option, and then you have to click on this option called specify orientation. Then you can take this point around and you can drag it whenever you want to. Now technically I don't want to place it here where it was already there, but I just want to keep it away from the body so that it is properly selectable. Now once it is kept away from the body at a slight good position, then you can click OK. Now base is added as well as located. Means technically we added the base and we also located where exactly the base is going to be. But in case of a block, it is only added. It is not located. Okay, in order to locate it, what we are going to do is we are going to click on this option called assembly constraints. As you can see over here, there is an option called assembly constraints. So if I click on assembly constraint, I'll just reset the command. Then I'm going to select this constraint called concentric. So once I choose the concentric constraint, now it is fairly simple. I just need to select the upper edge of this particular hole, and that is going to match with the lower edge of this particular hole. So now these two holes are concentric. Now location of a component is more about defining the degree of freedom of the component. Now here we have already defined the location of the first hole. That means that this particular component can technically rotate around. Okay, so whenever you are in an assembly constraint command, you can actually have this kind of rotations also. Okay, so I can just rotate it and move it slightly outward so that it is possible for me to select this edge. Okay, and also I'll select this edge. So now both the edges are defined. And normally whenever you locate the object with two holes, okay, it is fully constrained. Okay, because both the holes are actually getting located, so that means the object is becoming fully constrained. Now how to understand whether the location is properly defined or not? Okay, you have different ways of checking that. You have an option called as show degree of freedom. So if I click on show degree of freedom and if I select this part, there's no degree of freedom to worry about. But if suppose this constraint was never there, okay, like the last concentric constraint which I created was never there, in that case if I click on show degree of freedom, it will say it is going to rotate, okay, in this direction, and this will be the center of the rotation. That is the reason the degree of freedom arrow is showing over here. If the properties are properly defined, then if I click on show degree of freedom, nothing is there to show. This is the previous one. You can just right click and refresh or update the display in order to get rid of it. Okay, so I hope you understood how to place the components inside the assembly. Okay, let us now see one more placement after block. So here I'm going to click on add component. I'm going to click on browse. Let's say we'll browse for fixed job, and I'll click OK. Now again, I'm not happy with the location of the default position. I'm going to click on specify orientation, placing it somewhere over here in the outer space, and then clicking OK. Choosing the command called asymmetry constraint, defining I want to lock this hole with this hole and this hole with this hole. Once it is locked properly, I can simply click OK, and that is how I can solve the location based problem of this particular component. Now I hope you understood how to specify the location of multiple components inside the assembly. This is all for today. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great day.